Welcome back to another installment of Going Mental. My last few, I've been really focusing on kind of school-based programs and trying to look at different ways we can help kids with mental health, help kids with resilience, by using, obviously data that we do have. As I said before, when I was doing a lot of research for my book, Lighting the Blue Flame, which is a story written about a child, a young teenager who's been bullied, and essentially the book is kind of written in a way that the kid wants to, he takes his own life, but he wants to kind of see things change. And so part of that is about introducing a character, which in the book is based on the stuff I've done at schools and the school programs that really wanted to kind of take to another level in a previous life before I really got into much different roles. But essentially, the story is written in that way where we're looking at it from a parent's perspective who's got a child that is having issues. We've got looking at from the child's friends, the peers, the people that see him get bullied, the bully's perspective as well around being responsible for it, and understanding how that all affects everybody. Someone being bullied, and also then obviously the teachers, the principal, and the people are supposed to be there looking after these kids. So I wanted to kind of write it in that manner, in a way that is practical for people. People can identify with it, and really focus on the what next part of it, around understanding what is it we're trying to do as educators to help kids with that. Yes, we're teaching them English, math, and all the other stuff, but in terms of life skills that, they can, it's all well and good to be a genius at maths, but you're getting bullied by lots of people, being called a nerd and all kinds of, obnoxious words. And that can play on people. And then unfortunately, they never become, really useful citizens, because they go into a very bad, dark space in their heads and may never recover, or they just withdraw from society because it's not very nice. They don't feel comfortable. And so their defense mechanism actually hurts them longer term, because they can't be social, they can't do the other thing, all that. So, I really want to kind of look at ways we do that. One of the great books a lot of people would have heard of is this one by Dr. Joe Dispenza, right? Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. I'm not trying to steal his work or anything, but it certainly gives some guidance around the principles of us, and we want to change ourselves. So if we think of adverse childhood experiences, which I've mentioned before, which is a good predictor that if a lot of things happen to you, or more than a certain number of these experiences, then you're more likely to have problems in the future. So if we think of it as the child having all those issues, or having all those adverse childhood experiences through their early life, if that's going to be a predictor for this, how do we change it? And using this kind of book around breaking the habit of being yourself, these kids have, created, we all create habits, right? Our own patterns of thinking. We do the same thing every day. We usually brush our teeth the same way. We do the same stuff. It's a routine. We talk about it. If that routine's not necessarily good for you, then you need to change things. And the way to change things, as he points out, is breaking that habit of being you. So if you being you is you being super defensive, super scared, because you've had horrible things happen around you, your caregivers aren't very nice to you, they've treated you badly, you've been abused, all that stuff. So you've developed a natural development of a pattern that is designed to keep you out of harm's way as best as you can. If you're 4 or 5 years old, you do it in a way that's not going to be super aggressive. So you kind of have to suppress all that. It's really about shit scared the whole time, trying to keep low, not do anything to trigger mum or dad or whoever's causing all the grief to you. So you develop your own mechanisms. Now that might serve you well through those early periods, and then obviously as you become older, you become a teen or you become an adult, those patterns will stay with you. So if you don't recognize that you've developed those patterns, and if you don't recognize that those patterns aren't very helpful for you, you're not going to change anything, or you're just going to lash out. What you see a lot of times with kids that have had those adverse childhood experiences, they either become really bad students, or they turn to crime, they get angry, they lash out at other kids and other people, and you see a pattern. As the next cop you see the people that end up being criminals. Not everyone has the same pathway, don't get me wrong, but there's definitely elements of consistency that can predict certain outcomes, right? If you go in to look at prisons, who's sitting there, the bulk of them are going to be a certain profile. They're going to have lower socioeconomic background. They're going to potentially have, parents that, or they've experienced those adverse childhood experiences. They've got people in their families that have been incarcerated. They've got potential drugs, alcohol, domestic violence. There's all these things that it's not uncommon that it would associate with the people that end up there. So we want to kind of do work earlier on so that we get less of them ending up there. We can't always stop what has happened to someone, but we can try and change that mindset. So, if we look at Joe Dispenza's book about how we need to focus on how do we break those habits for those kids before it becomes a massive issue and a bigger issue longer term. Yes, it's an issue at grade 1. They rock up grade 1. What are some of the things we can do to help with that? I've talked about how we have discussions, so building resilience, not just up here, but also the social resilience, the aspects of how we develop that group of people that have come into your world as a teacher, and you can take, mold the whole team, not just individuals. Oh, yeah, Clint's a good student, Dave's a crap student, and make those decisions. There's lots of data, and even, where they've done experiments where they've told a teacher, this is a team of poor students and that's a team of bad students, but in reality it was the opposite way. And then, funny enough, the way the teacher treats them results in exactly the results that they have in their heads, even though the kids they're supposed to be the good students, and vice versa. We also see, the blue-eyed, brown-eyed experiment. It was only for one day, where people can literally turn on other people because of the color of their eyes. Just the suggestion that kids with blue eyes or green eyes are smarter than kids with brown eyes, and then they got treated badly by those same kids, and then they flipped it, and the same kids that didn't like it the day before will actually act just as badly as the other kids from the day before. So it's like, we know there's a lot more to psychology. We know there's a lot more we can do in a proactive way to come up with ways to get a better outcome. I am surprised by how little we do out there. I've had meetings with commissioners of mental health and spoken to people who work in government departments who are supposed to be doing more. I'm not trying to bag them for it, but part of what we as a society need to do is start putting it in front of the media, going to Channel 9 and sitting there with Carl and say, hey, why aren't we doing this? Let's talk about more of this. Let's coordinate some stuff. Let's put people in charge that are a little bit more. Look, some people have probably been beaten down by the system, but let's start smashing the system. Let's start, really challenging the status quo on this, because it shits me to tears when we hear about young people taking their own lives, and we go, oh wow, it's horrible, which it is, clearly is, right? There's no reason for young people to take their lives. There's no reason for anybody. Well, only under certain circumstances, when people are going through a lot of pain and there's no end to it. I understand, there's assisted euthanasia and all that kind of stuff, and it's a different ethical argument. But for young people who've got no other condition to take their own life is just crazy, right? Like we need to start banging down the doors and really getting in front of the right media and talking about this more, whether we set up a whole group and we start having discussions that people want to weigh into, could actually make something happen, not just go, oh, we've given millions of dollars to this and leave it there. We don't know what the freaking money's for, what it's doing, who's actually the subject matter expert saying, let's try some of this stuff. Let's do it as pilots. Let's put some money towards it. Let's really have a research proposal around it and start doing that. And I think that's the way forward. Hope you got something out of that. Cheers, guys.